Welcome to the Get Published podcast, sponsored by Brodie Consulting Group. To get more information about our coaching, publishing, executive ghostwriting, and podcast production services, go to getpublishedpodcast.com. Hello, I am Paul Brodie, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the Get Published podcast, where we help authors get published with a proven system that works. Today, we're being joined by Byron Reese, author of The Fourth Age. Byron, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you for having me.
Are you ready to get started?
I am ready.
All right. Question number 1. What is the one piece of advice that you would give to a first-time author who is currently writing their book?
I would suggest spending as much time working on the proposal almost as you spend on the book. The proposal is, the document you need to sell the book, and it's also the document that allows you to kind of work through your own thinking about the book.
So with your proposals, how many publishing companies did you send it to?
Maybe 20.
And which publisher did you end up working with?
Atria, which is an imprint of Simon & Schuster.
And how was your experience with them?
Fantastic. I turned in a manuscript that I thought was pretty good, and that my editor made so many suggestions. It was an enormous amount of work, but the book came out vastly better than I could have ever done. So for me, it really helped me as a writer get more to produce a better book than I would have been able to produce alone. I have a friend who's an author, and I go out to lunch with him, and I mentioned that my manuscript came back with all of these marks on it. Just change this and move this, and this isn't any good, and this doesn't make sense, and just page after page after page of it. And I said, is that normal? And what my friend said was, hey, do you know why great writers' last books aren't very good? And I'm like, why? And he said, because they reach a point where they say to their editor, I'm Ernest Hemingway, and who are you? And they stop listening to their editors. And so their later books are unreadable. That the editor is like the indispensable partner to make you produce your very best work. And in my case, it was. I spent as much time editing the book as I spent writing it.
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I just finished my 14th book, the first draft of it, last night about 1:30 a.m. Sent it to my editor, and she's already working on it. And I always refer to the editor as the person that does the slicing and the dicing and really cleans it up and makes it look good.
Yeah, my editor didn't write a word of it. He would just put notes that would question a lot of stuff I said, a lot of the ways I structured it. He did not mince words.
Yeah.
He was brutal.
That's what you need.
Right. And I just knew he wanted the same thing I wanted, which was a really good book.
Yeah, that's why I always joke around with Devin, who's my editor. She's edited all of my books, and I always refer to her as the sliced and dicing because she is not afraid to tell me her opinion and what can be improved. Right. And I think that's great. When you can partner with the right editor, that's definitely one of those relationships that you want to keep for as many of your books as possible.
I did every single thing my editor suggested. Mm-hmm. And I mean hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of things. I figured, he's edited more books than I've read probably. I don't know. But I wasn't going to second guess him.
Yeah, that is such great advice because the editor really makes your book putting a nice polished product. Well, what do you feel is the hardest part about getting published?
Well, I listened to a tape series called The Right Book Right Now by a guy named Scott Hoffman. And he really helped me kind of see that my job was to make a business case for the book. Why would a publisher want to publish it? I need to show them how, it's a good investment of their money and time. And that requires you understand a lot about how the book would be marketed and how you would actually sell copies of it and how you're going to promote it and so forth. So the heaviest lifting and the least intuitive part of the process is building a really compelling marketing plan and business case for the book, because your publisher is going to invest a lot of money and time in it. And, you know, they're not in the charity business. So they're doing it because they want a return, and they want the process de-risked as much as possible, like anybody would want. They want their investment to be less risky, and so they want to understand exactly how the book's going to sell. I mean, I sold lots of copies of this book myself, and you know, it was a lot of blocking and tackling and promoting, and I mean, I spent, you know, I said I spent as much time editing as I spent writing it. I probably spent twice as much time selling it as I spent writing it. So, I mean, I work on selling the book every day.
Well, and this transitions nicely into our next question, and that is to please share a marketing strategy that you have used in your book launch that worked well.
For us, my business has a large number of Twitter followers. And the interesting thing about a Twitter follower is that you can direct message them. You can send them essentially an email within the Twitter platform. And those get open all the time because the only people that can DM somebody are people they follow. So if, you know, famous person X may get 1,000 unsolicited emails, but they can only get DM'd in Twitter by people they follow. And that's a few people. And so I found that by DMing people in Twitter, asking them if they would review the book, if they would get a copy and write a review on Amazon, if they would, whatever they happen to be, essentially all of those messages got read, and a large percentage of them were responded to.
So when you did that, how many people did you reach out to?
Well, my case is a little different than most because my company has a lot of followers. But I would say you should read through every one of the descriptions and see if there's a compelling reason that that you can make for what you would want that person to do.
Right. So how many people did you reach out to when you did this, when you researched?
I mean, we have 500,000 followers, so we reached out to 10,000 people.
Wow.
But so I'm saying that's not
typical.
Not normal. If you have 500 followers, reach out to 50 of them.
Yeah.
So, like I said, my situation's a little different in that regard, but the strategy, I think, is applicable to anybody.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That's one of the great strategies I think that's missed with Instagram and with Twitter in particular, is utilizing DMs and sending them messages going, hey, I have this book coming out. I'd love to have you check it out. If I could send you an advanced copy, let me know. All I ask is that you please consider reviewing it after you've done so once it goes live. Just something real simple, real friendly, and it's a great approach. And obviously, you reached out to 10,000 people, so that was a lot. But just to ask you of those 10,000, what was the percentage? And the main reason I asked for a percentage is because we can plug and play that into different equations. So what do you feel is the percentage of the people that you reached out to that did end up helping you out in some sort of capacity with your book launch?
The only thing I really tracked was how many of them replied, and about a quarter replied.
Got it.
And then from there, you know, I asked some people just to read it, some people to tweet about it, some people to leave an Amazon review. It just depended on the person.
So essentially, you tailored it based on the response.
Absolutely.
That is such a great strategy because anyone can do this. You don't have to have tens of thousands of followers.
Correct.
You could have a few hundred and just reaching out to those people and then finding out their response based on that. Because I think 25% is a pretty good ballpark figure. So anything between 50 and 25%, that's a good response rate. So if you can tailor it from there, definitely a great way to market it and to utilize social media properly.
And you won't get anything like that when you email people because you know, email just flows through and people just don't see it.
So you had them do several different things. You'd have them review the book or download a copy. What were some of the other things that you asked them to do?
Sometimes I ask for introductions if they were not in the U.S. to try to find non-U.S. publishers. I don't even remember. I mean, like we would just read through them, read their descriptions, and try to think if there was any sort of a connection. I mean, we didn't spam anybody. Every email we sent was different.
Yep.
Literally, everyone was different. There was no copying and pasting because every person, was different. Some people are just influencers, and I offered just to send them a copy of the book. I mean, it varied all over the map.
Well, and the nice thing is you actually took the time to research who they were versus just sending out blanket messages going, okay, well, these people are responding, I'm going to send them this message. You tailored it. And that's what I feel is one of the biggest differences when you tailor it specifically to that person and to their strengths and to different ways that they can help you and you can help them. It's such a targeted approach and it works.
Absolutely.
Well, let's talk about your favorite book. So what is your favorite book? And what was the number one thing that you learned from it?
My favorite book is called The Story of Civilization by Will and Ariel Durant. And it's a little bit of a cheat because it's 11 books. It's a series he wrote with his wife over the course of 55 years. And on audio, it's 600 hours. And I've listened to it all the way through twice. And I just love every minute of it because it's kind of the story of how we managed to go from barbarism to civilization, and that I think is really fascinating because you can look back and there was a time when we were barbarians, and somehow we managed to make it through to a much more civilized and prosperous time. And why that happened, I think, is worth exploring.
And for a final question, what is your favorite quote and why?
I would probably pick Goethe, who said, be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid. And just because I find it kind of inspiring and it compels one to action. I think having a bias towards action, bias towards doing things is powerful. And as long as you're going to do things, you might as well do big things. So be bold and mighty forces will come to your aid.
Well, Byron, I want to thank you for being a guest on the show. What is the best way for people to find you online?
I'm the easiest guy in the world to find. So I'm Byron Reese. It's BYRON REESE on Twitter, on LinkedIn. I'm ByronReese.com. You just type my name and it'll all come up.
Byron, thank you once again for being on the show, and I wish you all the best in your author journey ahead.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks again for joining us today. To learn more about how you can be featured in our brand new Get Published business book, go to getpublishedpodcast.com.